city of Black Harbor never slept. At night, its skyscrapers shimmered like broken glass, reflecting neon lights onto rain-soaked streets. The smell of wet asphalt mixed with cigarette smoke, cheap coffee, and the distant salt of the ocean. Sirens wailed in the background like restless ghosts. On the 12th floor of a narrow apartment building stood apartment 12B, a small, crowded, and barely holding together. Peeling wallpaper curled from the walls. A single broken ceiling fan spun lazily. The radiator rattled like an old man struggling to breathe. Inside lived Marissa Cauldron, a 33-year-old widow, a hospital nurse, and a mother to an 8-year-old boy named Jaden. Her life was stitched together by exhaustion. 5 years earlier, her husband Leon Cauldron had died in a construction site explosion in Nevada. At least that was what she was told. The company sent an urn with ashes. A crisp death certificate. A black and white photo. And empty condolences. Marissa had collapsed at the funeral. She had screamed until her voice cracked. She had clung to the urn like it was the only part of Leon that remained. But the day after the funeral, everything changed. Leon's parents, Ramon and Estelle Cauldron, appeared at her door unannounced. Ramon leaned heavily on his cane. Estelle clutched a handkerchief soaked in tears. They sat at her tiny kitchen table like mourners in their own trial. Estelle spoke first, voice trembling. "Leon borrowed all our retirement savings before he left for Nevada." Marissa froze mid-breath. "How much?" she whispered. $12,000, Ramon said flatly. The room felt colder. Marissa glanced at Jaden, asleep on the couch, hugging a worn blue teddy bear. Her chest tightened. Estelle dabbed her eyes dramatically. "He promised he would pay us back once he started working. But now he's gone, a broken bar, and we have nothing." Marissa's heart shattered all over again. She saw herself in their grief. She saw Jaden's future slipping away. "I'll pay it," she said softly. Ramon's eyes flickered. Estelle leaned closer. $200 a month, a broken bar for 5 years. Marissa nodded. She signed a crumpled, handwritten agreement on a stained napkin. That moment chained her to a life of quiet suffering. Every month, on the 5th day, she climbed the crumbling 5 floors of a decaying building on West Pine Street to deliver cash to her in-laws. They never invited her inside. They never offered water. They never asked about Jaden. They simply opened the door a crack, snatched the envelope, and slammed it shut. No warmth. No gratitude. No family. Only silence. Marissa worked double shifts at Mercy Hospital. She cleaned rooms after midnight. She picked up overtime. She skipped meals. She wore the same faded nurse shoes until the soles split. Her son grew up with a tired mother and an empty space where a father should have been. Yet, every month, she handed over $200 in cash, money meant for Jaden's school supplies, milk, and football league. One stormy evening, after delivering the payment, Marissa stood alone in the dark stairwell. The fluorescent bulb flickered above her. Dripping water echoed down the walls. It was too quiet. Unnaturally quiet. She pressed her ear against apartment 504. No TV. No radio. No breathing. Just silence, thick and heavy like a grave. She turned to leave. And felt eyes on her back. Slowly, she looked up. Through a cracked blind on the 5th floor, a shadow moved. Tall. Broad-shouldered. With a slight limp. Her heart slammed violently. She shook it off and hurried downstairs. Outside, she ran into Mrs. Daniels, a sharp-tongued older neighbor who knew everyone's business. "Still paying those 2 vultures?" Mrs. Daniels snapped. Marissa nodded. Mrs. Daniels grabbed her wrist. "Stop next month. Just stop." Marissa frowned. "I only have 2 payments left." Mrs. Daniels leaned closer. Sometimes, the dead aren't as dead as we think. A chill raced down Marissa's spine. My husband died in Nevada, she said quietly. We have his ashes. Mrs. Daniels shook her head. I'm not talking about ghosts. I'm talking about a man I see sneaking up those stairs at night. Marissa felt dizzy. He limps, Mrs. Daniels whispered. Same way Leon did after that motorcycle crash. Marissa's legs trembled. Between the 4th and 5th floor, they installed a security camera, Mrs. Daniels added. Get the footage. That night, Marissa didn't sleep. At dawn, Marissa called her cousin Isaac, a cybersecurity specialist in Chicago. 2 days later, they met in a dim cafe. Copyright smelling of burnt espresso. Isaac opened his laptop. I pulled the footage from the stairwell camera for the last 3 months, he said quietly. He pressed play. Grainy black and white video filled the screen. Timestamp, 1:46 a.m. a 6th of the month. A man appeared on the stairs. Cap pulled low. Face masked. Baggy jacket. Right foot stepped normally. Left foot dragged slightly. Shoulder dipping. Marissa gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. The man reached apartment 504. He didn't knock. He pulled out a key. Unlocked the door. And slipped inside. Isaac replayed the last 3 months. Same man. Same time. Always the night after Marissa delivered the money. Tears streamed down her face. That's Leon, she whispered. Isaac copied everything onto a USB. Marissa clutched it like a weapon. Her dead husband was alive. And he had lied to her for 5 years. She dug deeper. Isaac helped her check Ramon and Estelle's bank records. Their pension checks piled up untouched. They hadn't withdrawn money in years. Yet neighbors reported seeing pizza boxes, beer cans, and food bags thrown out late at night. Someone young was living there. Someone who wasn't Ramon or Estelle. Marissa remembered the day they received the urn. A company representative named Mr. Lowell had insisted on immediate cremation. No body identification. No family viewing. Only ashes. She called him. He stuttered. Avoided questions. Hung up quickly. Marissa knew the truth. Leon's death was fake. That weekend, she drove with Jaden to Leon's hometown in Ohio. The cemetery was quiet. Sunlight shimmered over polished marble graves. Marissa placed flowers before Leon's niche. Jaden whispered, "Hi, Dad." When he wandered off to chase a butterfly, Marissa unlocked the glass niche. She lifted the urn. Hands trembling, she pried open the sealed lid. Inside were stones. No ashes. No bones. Only rubble. Her knees buckled. She collapsed onto the grass. Crying silently. She recorded everything with a hidden camera. "Today, I prove my husband is alive," she whispered. She resealed the urn and locked it back in place. Behind her stood a lie carved in granite. Isaac tracked Leon's best friend Darius King. He worked at a shady auto shop inside an abandoned industrial park near Gary, Indiana. Every night at 11 p.m., Darius drove to an abandoned warehouse carrying food and supplies. One night, Marissa and Isaac went dressed in black. They hid behind rusted barrels. At 11:17 p.m., Darius arrived on a motorcycle. He knocked on the metal door, hard. Soft. Hard. The door screeched open. And there stood Leon Cauldron. Alive. Thinner. Bearded. Broken but breathing. Marissa turned on her recorder. Inside, Darius handed him bags of food and beer. Leon laughed loudly. "My wife is a fool," he said. "She paid every month like clockwork." Darius shook his head. "You faked your death. You abandoned your son." Leon shrugged. "I owed dangerous men money. Faking my death was easier. Then he said the words that destroyed Marissa completely, "Jaden will be fine. Marissa is young, she'll find another man." Marissa bit her lip until it bled. She recorded every word, every confession, every cruelty. The next day, she handed everything to a top criminal lawyer. That night, police launched a coordinated raid. One team stormed the warehouse, Leon arrested. Another team arrested Darius for money laundering. A third team arrested Ramon and Estelle for conspiracy and extortion. Marissa waited at the police station, calm and silent. At 2:23 a.m., a detective entered. He confessed. The courtroom was packed. Reporters filled every seat. Cameras flashed like lightning. Headlines exploded across America: "The Widow Wu exposed her own husband." Leon sat in an orange prison uniform, handcuffed, eyes empty. When Marissa's recordings were played, the room fell into stunned silence. His mother sobbed loudly. His father stared at the floor. The judge spoke coldly. Leon was sentenced to 15 years in prison for aggravated fraud, document forgery, sense, emotional abuse, financial exploitation, conspiracy. Darius received 10 years. Ramon and Estelle were placed on probation and ordered to repay every $A plus compensation for emotional damage. Outside, sunlight poured over the courthouse steps. For the first time in 5 years, Marissa breathed freely. She sold her old apartment. With her settlement money, she bought a small lakeside house in Vermont. She opened a center called New Beginnings, helping children from broken families heal through art and counseling. Jaden thrived. He laughed more, slept peacefully, grew confident. One evening at sunset, he looked up at his mother and said, "Mama, I want to be a lawyer one day so nobody can hurt families like they hurt us." Marissa hugged him tightly. Tears of pride filled her eyes. Behind them, the lake shimmered gold and purple. And in that quiet moment, Marissa whispered, "You tried to bury me in lies, but I became the storm you could never survive."